Hi, this will be an introduction to CSS grids. Grids are a great way to place content on a web page. We're going to make a basic 6-cell grid to house my cute doggy pictures. So let's get started. All right, so I'm going to create a new site. So site, new site. And I'm going to call it basic grid 1. And I'm going to save this on my desktop, new folder, basic grid 1, and create, save. All right, create new. Let's make our HTML page. So again, new document, HTML, none, and create. There we go. And we're going to save this file, save as. And the first page of a website is always called index.html. Save. And since I'm going to have pictures involved, I have a folder right here. So let me get my site folder here, basic grid 1, and drag my images into that folder. And there it is, images. All right, so let's start with the coding. And we already have our HTML started. Thank you, Dreamweaver. And the first thing we're going to do is add a div. So insert div. And we're going to call this grid hyphen container. Okay. Delete that content. There we go. So here it is. This is our container, and this is our opening tag and our closing tag. And since this is indeed a container, let's make some space for what we're going to put in it. And this one we're going to call grid hyphen item. All right, I'm going to need 6 of these. These are going to be cells in our container. So Command C. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is where we're going to put our pictures. So let's do that right now. So we're going to click on that. Insert. Image. Images. Palm 1. Palm 2, Palm 3, Palm 4, Palm 5, and finally Palm 6. All right, great. So now let's work on our CSS. So let's create our style sheet. Source, create new CSS file. Browse. I'm going to make a folder and call it CSS. And I'm going to call this grid style.css. And save. Okay, and we're good. All right. So here's our CSS style sheet. And we're going to start by making a class. So you start all classes with a period, and since it already knows I need these 2 classes from my HTML coding, we'll start with grid container. Space, curly bracket, return, display, and in this case we want grid, and semicolon, return. So now I'm going to type in grid hyphen template. And I want columns. And there it is right there. And I do want auto. Matter of fact, since I want this to be 3 columns, I need to put 3 autos in place to have representation for each column and semicolon. Now I can also put in a specific measurement in here for each column, which I will do in a minute, but we'll start with auto. So now we need our second class, period, and of course it already knows that I need grid item. So space, curly bracket, and in this case, I'm going to type in a height size. So height, colon, 350 pixels, semicolon. All right, let's take a look at what we did. So there it is. We have all our pictures in place. I already knew the order I want them in. So basically, it's going to follow the order in the HTML coding is how I placed them. So I didn't need to add numbers or anything like that for doing a basic grid. I knew the order and I was all good. All right. But now you can see we got spaces here. And the reason why we got spaces is because we did the auto for our columns. So what the program's doing is it's evenly distributing the columns across the entire website page. Now each picture is 350 pixels. So they're not going to fill the page. So if I wanted to, I can go and put a specific size here. So in this case, 350 pixels. 350 pixels, 350 pixels. And let's look at it now. And there you go, joined together. Now I want to fix one more thing here. As you can see, our grid is sliding to the left side. It's not centered. So let's center it. So let's go back to our code. And let's add a justify command. Justify content and center and semicolon. And let's take a look at that. And there we go. Nicely centered. But let's do a little bit more to this. Maybe you don't want the pictures to be bumping up to each other. Maybe you want to put some space in the gutters and stuff. So let's go and type in grid hyphen gap. And let's try 30 pixels. And let me take a look. You can now see we have space between the columns and the rows. But we can have a little more control if you want. If you want to make the columns a different space, we just add a second number here. So let's try 75 pixels. And look at that. And there we go. Extra space between the columns while maintaining the original space between the rows. If you just want to affect one or the other, you can. So let's type in grid row gap. And let's see, let's make it 50. And there we just put a gap between the rows, and the same for the columns. Instead of row, we just type in column. And let's make that a 30. And take a look. And there we just have space in between the columns. Now earlier, I had to add this height in here. And the reason why I did that, and I'll show you, we're going to delete it and go back to our page. And you can see there's a little built-in space in the cells at the bottom. So to get rid of that space, I'm telling it to make the height of the cell the same height as my picture, which is 350 pixels.